Hello, everybody. Welcome to Interpreting Isaiah for Teaching. My name is Brian Smith, and I'm thrilled to be your instructor for this class. And let's jump right into it. By the way, the name of the class is not just Isaiah, but it's Interpreting Isaiah for Teaching. So the idea is we're going to hit some key interpretive questions that you're bound to come across in studying Isaiah as you prepare to teach it. So it's not just a verse by verse study of Isaiah, it's dealing with certain interpretive issues that you will encounter in Isaiah. All right, so let's go over just some basic class information here. And the first thing is there will be a weekly video like this. Please check your announcements every week. And if you would also get in the habit of regularly checking your Moody email. That's the only way I can contact you, and I do send out occasional updates and inquiries. So check your weekly video, your Moody email, and then if you can go to the class introductions. It's kind of hard to create community where everybody's out there in cyberspace. So if you take the time to just tell us a little bit about yourself, that would be fantastic. I always love it if you can include a picture of you or your family, or you and your family and your dog, or your cat or your mouse or whatever you have, and then tell us something interesting about yourself. Do you hold a world record? Do you have a hobby? Tell us something fun, okay? Then another thing is late policy. I have a lot of students this year, not just in this class, but in other classes. So we're going to have to stay very tight to the late policy. Your assignments are due on Monday night by midnight. 10% off every day after that where it is late. Okay, your discussion boards, you have to make your first post on weeks that there is a post, your first post by Friday midnight. Then over the weekend, you want to take some time and read other people's posts and interact with 2 students. And that is due by Monday at midnight also. So be aware of that. I have revised 3 assignments, and I want to just quickly touch on these 3 so you're prepared for them and aware of them as we head into them. And the first one is this. The assignment used to be to do some extracurricular reading and then write a report. I'm going to set that aside and have you, for your reading, read the book of Isaiah. I figure if we're going to study Isaiah, we're going to read Isaiah. And you know what? A lot of people have never read it through. You don't necessarily have to do it in one day, but in the first week, read through the entire book of Isaiah. If you do 11 chapters a day, you'll get all 66 in 6 days. And then the discussion question will be, how was this experience for you, reading reading all of Isaiah in a short amount of time? Okay. You check off on your reading report that you did your reading, but your reading is not the textbooks. It is the book of Isaiah. Okay. The second revised assignment is week 2. The authorship question. You may not know this, but there's a debate in the scholarly world about who wrote Isaiah. Now, virtually everybody says a guy named Isaiah wrote it, but then here's the question. There's a 150-year gap between when King Hezekiah and Ahaz live and his writing to the people in the Babylonian captivity when they're alive. So the question is, was this the same author, or were there 2 Isaiahs or 3 Isaiahs, or Isaiah and some disciples and so forth? Now, the way the assignment originally was written is you're to read these different articles and so forth and write an essay. I'm going to focus your attention a little bit more intensely And I'm going to have you do it this way. The John Oswalt's commentary on Isaiah has an introduction. In that introduction, there's a section on the authorship question. He lays out 12 arguments for one Isaiah. I want you to briefly summarize those 12 arguments, and then at the end you're going to interact with them in a couple of paragraphs. The reason I'm having you do this is not so you blindly buy whatever he says, but it's one of the few articles that actually concentrates and gives all the arguments in one place. So I think the best way to come to a theological position is to try to gather those arguments together and look at them and interact with them. So that's why I'm going to have you do that assignment focusing on Oswalt. And then week 5, you were to do another paper on the remnant, the theme of remnant. And I found that it was a bit confusing, so I have just tightened it up and put together a worksheet, and you are basically going to go through the worksheet and answer the questions as you go, and that will clarify the assignment for you. All right, so those are some revised assignments. Then it's always helpful when you're reading a book like this to pull out a map, and this is really the geographical background of the book of Isaiah. Isaiah is writing during, at least the first half of the book, during the rise and the conquest of the world by the Assyrian Empire. So Assyria here is the green, and they're taking over the Middle East, and they're coming down upon Syria. Notice Syria is different than Assyria. And they do take over Syria, and then eventually they will take over northern Israel, and they're surrounding Judah. And the first part of the book, it's King Ahaz dealing with the threat of Assyria, and then later on it's his son King Hezekiah who's dealing with the threat of Assyria. So just kind of knowing that is helpful. I always find when there's lots of cities and countries named, it's helpful to pull out a map. Now, the themes of Isaiah. There is actually a pretty good chart in the Moody Bible Commentary. Dr. Rydelnik and James Spencer wrote that commentary, and in the intro there is this chart. And I have found that this is kind of like a table of contents to help you through. Now, here's a key to not being frustrated with Isaiah. A lot of people get frustrated because it's not in chronological order. It's not even claiming to be a historical narrative. Now, there are some historical sections in it about that actually include Isaiah and these kings, but most of it is prophecy. And we don't always know when the prophecy was given. So I would equate Isaiah more to a collection of poems or a collection of prophecies, and there is some thematic order to it, but you're going to be frustrated if you look at it as a historical narrative and you can't figure out where everything fits. Okay? Now, here's some semblance of order. The first 6 chapters are the prologue. It gives you the setting, and we find out Israel is in a state of depravity. There are visions of a future Jerusalem, a glorious day about the future. And then in chapter 6, you have Isaiah's calling when God appears to him in the temple. So that's the prologue. Then you could really line everything up in two major rows. The first is the narrative of a sign rejected. This is when through Isaiah, God offers King Ahaz a sign that God will be with them. And Ahaz kind of pretends to be, oh, no, I would never ask God for a sign. So he rejects the sign. And then what follows are a number of oracles or prophecies of judgment. All right. So the theme of the first half of the book is that of judgment. Now, there are some glimpses of future glory, but the main theme would be judgment. Then we get to his son, King Hezekiah, and he accepts a sign. All right, so there's belief involved. And then the basic theme that ties the rest of the book together, oracles of blessing, deliverance from Babylon, deliverance from sin, deliverance in the end times. So it's not a perfectly tight table of contents, but that should help you kind of bring some structure to the book. All right. Another thing that may be helpful to you is if you go to the Bible Project and watch the overview, about a 10-minute overview on the entire book of Isaiah, but they also do these little cartoon maps, which kind of lays out the entire book of Isaiah. I'd encourage you to take a look at that, because this first week you're reading Isaiah and you're getting the lay of the land. I would encourage you to take a look at this and enjoy as you read this week the book of Isaiah. All right, God bless you.